Hey everyone, welcome to our behavior change project. We are Erica Tavares, Janet Johnson, Chelsea Davis, and Susan Pallone. The original study was using goal setting and feedback to increase weekly running distance by Wack, Crossland, and Miltenberger. And Janet is just going to give us an overview of the original study.
Thank you, Erica. The purpose of the original study was to evaluate goal setting and performance feedback to increase running distance with 5 healthy adults. Many of you may know there have been multiple behavioral interventions such as goal setting and performance feedback, and they've been shown to be useful to achieve behavior change in the realm of health and sports. Specifically, goal setting has been effective in many team sports like soccer, football, and rugby, while additional studies have shown that goal setting and individual feedback is more effective than just goal setting. This, however, was the first study to evaluate goal setting and performance feedback on increasing distance running in individuals. The participants in this study were 5 female college students from the University of Florida who had all expressed an interest in increasing their running distance. The students were between the ages of 18 to 28 and were considered to be in good health as indicated and assessed by the Physical Activity Readiness Questionnaire. Each participant received information about the study and was given a Nike Sports Kit. The Sport Kit consisted of a Nike Sport Band and sensor. These instruments were calibrated and accuracy was estimated to be between 90 and 100% at the start of the study. Distance was recorded by using the Sport Band and sensor, and data was collected from both the NikeRunning.com website and from the Sport Band. IOA was assessed using 2 independent observers, the researcher and participants, so 4 individuals. IOA was 97% across all participants with a range of 91 to 100%. A running episode in this study was defined as a continuous run at a speed faster than a brisk walk, 4 miles per hour. Design was multiple baseline across participants with an embedded changing criterion design in intervention 2. Finally, the participants completed a 4-question social validity Likert questionnaire to assess their opinion of the study. Baseline in this study was done in 2 to 4 weeks. No goals were set during that time. In intervention 1, after baseline, each participant met with the researcher to set a short-term goal, i.e. the distance a participant wanted to run in a single episode, and a long-term goal. Long-term goals were set on a weekly basis. For short-term goals, runners were required to set a goal to run 3 times per week. In addition, at least 2 of the 3 runs had to have met the goal criterion in order for the participant to increase her goal. If she did not meet both requirements, running 3 times and meet criteria, she had a choice for the following week. She could either lower her goal or retain the same goal. Weekly goal setting meetings in person or by video conference gave performance feedback to the participant via graphic display and verbal description of the daily progress. Participants were also asked to upload their progress to NikeRunning.com each week. This could be viewed daily, weekly, and monthly. In intervention 2, 3 of the 5 participants failed to meet criterion on multiple occasions, so modifications were offered. Intervention 2 did not require a minimum number of runs per week, but rather was based on a weekly distance goal. During intervention 2, participants were required to meet the distance criterion for 2 weeks before increasing their goal. In addition, the long-term goal was also changed to reflect the total number of miles the participant wanted to run on a weekly basis, rather than the distance per episode as in intervention 1. When given the option of remaining in intervention 1 or 2, all 3 other participants who were failing to meet criteria under intervention 1 chose to move to intervention 2. And it's important to note that that was an option, not a requirement. All 5 participants in this study increased their running distance over the course of this study. 2 of the participants increased their running distance participating only in intervention 1. In one case, participant A increased her running distance from a baseline of 5.7 miles per week to a mean of 0.5 miles per week during the last 3 weeks and achieved weekly goals in 7 of 11 weeks. Weekly goals were met in 80% of the opportunities by this participant. Participant B increased from 0.1 miles per week during baseline to a mean of 2.4 miles during the last 3 weeks. She achieved her goal on 5 of 6 weeks, or 83% of opportunities. The remaining 3 participants were successful in intervention 2. While participant C achieved her weekly goal only once in intervention 1, during 2, she achieved her goal in all 7 weeks with a mean of 3.8 miles per week from a baseline of 0.6 miles per week. She met 33% of her goals in intervention 1, but 100% in intervention 2. Participant D had a baseline of 5.2 miles per week, dropped to 4.5 miles in intervention 1, but in intervention 2, she achieved her goal in all 7 weeks with a mean of 7.6 miles per week. She was unable to meet any goal in intervention 1, but achieved 100% in intervention 2. The last participant increased from her baseline of 0 miles per week to 0.9 during intervention 1, but during intervention 2, she achieved her goal in 9 of 11 weeks with a mean of 5.7 miles per week, increasing from 40% of her goal to 82%. Pretty impressive. This study demonstrated effectiveness of goal setting and performance feedback to improve running performance. This was the first to address distance running on individuals and to use an automated method of recording. Because there is a permanent product, this prevents falsification and allows participants to more closely monitor their own progress. One limitation mentioned in this study was the fact that there was no maintenance information provided. With that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to Erica, who is going to talk about the purpose of our study and some additional information regarding our study.
Thank you, Janet. The purpose of our study was to evaluate the effect that goal setting had on our walking distance. We also wanted to test the effectiveness of using the Map My Run app through iPhone or Android to increase walking distance, considering it was a no-cost option for us because we did not have access to the Nike Sport Band like the original study did. So why this study? Our group members felt that it was socially significant, specifically because when you look at walking or running or anything like that, it's looked at as being health conscious. And with the new year, we all really wanted to, make some health conscious goals. The original study also indicated that there was a behavior change in increasing the running distance and that it was effective. So since the participants in that study became motivated to increase their distance, we felt that we would all, have the same effect. Also, replication for this study was manageable and cost effective, so we really didn't have to buy anything. We can do everything on our own time. It wasn't much of a hassle. So project modifications, instead of using the Nike Sport Band, we used Map My Run to record our distance and the time that our duration of our walk. We found it was more cost effective and more readily available to all group members because we can just simply download it on whatever device we were using. And it was easy to download on these portable or mobile devices. We also made changes as far as our baseline and intervention phases go, specifically because we only had a set amount of time for the behavior project. So in the original study, some members had an intervention phase that lasted between 11 and 17 days. We really only had a specific amount of time. The baseline and our group members decided to increase walking distance instead of running distance. So none of us were really runners, so we all felt that walking would be a better choice for us. And as far as IOA purposes went, the original study used independent observers outside of the study, and we used each other as well as the Map My Run app. All right, so Chelsea is going to talk about the methods of our portion of the project.
Okay, so in this project, the participants were 4 female graduate students, ages 24 to 58, and we're all considered to be in good health, and we all attend Ball State University and are in the same course of Advanced Applied Behavior Analysis. We researched a number of studies and settled on this replication through a shared interest in the behavior involved. And it's important to note that another student began this experiment with us. However, her data wasn't considered in our results due to her dropping the course prior to this experiment ending. The setting in which we conducted our experiment was based on each individual participant preference. That could be outside, in a preferred location, on a treadmill, at the gym, home, or any other preferred location of the participant. The materials that were used were Map My Run app, and that's how we recorded our distance. And that needed to be on a portable device, so a phone or an iPad. Running or walking shoes, a computer, and we used a computer for means of setting goals, making the graphs, sharing the data, and checking in with each other. And Microsoft Excel to ensure that we were conducting our data and the graphs correctly. So the behavior definition of running is defined as rapid steps where 1 foot alternates leaving the ground at the time for 10 minutes or more. Walking is defined as steadily stepping where 1 foot alternates leaving the ground at the time for 10 minutes or more. Both running or walking could be done. We kind of all chose walking due to our athletic abilities. Outside at a preferred location or on a treadmill at the gym, home, or preferred location. An example of this behavior is walking for 10 minutes around one's neighborhood, but a non-example of this behavior was to have your Map My Run app running throughout your day at work or school or something. It needed to be a specific time set aside as a goal for exercise. The data collection that we used, again, was the Map My Run application, and that collected the miles walked. We also had a running log kept on Google Docs with each other to share our walking distance for data performance feedback. And this is a multiple baseline across participants design that was used. For the baseline phase, the participants walked independently in a preferred setting. The miles walked during the baseline period were provided by the Map My Run app, and we didn't set any goals for this. Some group members' baseline lasted longer than others until a trend and stability in the data was obtained. During intervention, the first treatment phase lasted a minimum of 1 week. The group members set a short-term and a long-term goal. So the short-term goal would be you could walk 3 times out of the week or a specific distance they wanted to run in a single episode. Or you could do a long-term goal, which like the overall goal for distance walked over the course of a week rather than a single episode. For example, my long-term goal was to complete 9 miles in 1 week. And
this is Susan Pallone. I will speak to the participants' goals. Each individual participant set their own goals, both short and long term, so they vary. Erica had a short-term goal of walking 3 times per week. This started at the start of intervention 2, which for her was following 2 weeks of baseline data. She also had a long-term goal set of walking at least 10 miles in 1 week. That was to be accomplished by the end of the study replication. Janet also chose to stick with intervention 1 throughout, and her short-term goal was to walk 3 times per week. That goal had to be met 2 of 3 incidences to continue on, which she did. Her long-term goal was to walk at least 5 miles in 1 week. Chelsea had a short-term goal also of walking 3 times per week. These 3 individual participants stuck with intervention 1 when given the choice between continuing on with it or switching to intervention 2. Chelsea had a long-term goal of walking at least 9 miles in 1 week to be completed by the end of the study. I had a short-term goal of walking 3 times per week, as well as 1 mile each time walked during intervention 1. Because I did not meet that 1 mile each time walked 2 out of 3 times and only met it once, I did not reach my goal. At that point, I chose to move to intervention 2 for treatment. And my overall long-term goal for the study replication was to walk at least 5 miles in 1 week. In regards to inter-observer agreement and treatment integrity, this first point speaks to treatment integrity, that all participants agreed to a full understanding of the behavioral definitions and the process of the study. The project protocol was approved, understood, and adhered to by all individual participants across the board. The treatment phases of the replication were implemented with a high level of integrity. Not only was the data collection documented from the accuracy of collection by technology through the use of a device as well as an app specific to the behavior we were measuring, but in addition, each individual participant was certain to implement the use of short-term goals during the first treatment phase that were meaningful, defined with precision, specific, and observable. And then also during the final treatment phase, both short and long-term goals that met the same rigor and precision. Informing another participant for IOA purposes allowed for further evidence of accountability of the individual, as well as fidelity of the implementation of the treatment and its effectiveness through the results provided. This close collaboration and accurate communication ensured procedural integrity by all participants throughout the phases of the replication of the original study. Participants were made accountable for walking goals by informing members at the start and end of the walking episode. You can see in the snapshot there one of the snapshots provided to another participant after a walking episode of the information that's provided. The screenshot is from Map My Run. That app was used to send the information to other participants. This screenshot happens to show the time date stamps of informing someone when you're leaving to walk and when you are done, which allows them to calculate IOA data in terms of the time walked. The snapshot then shows 3 different things: the distance that was walked in that time, how long, so it's another form of IOA data, as well as how long it took per mile to walk. Another page on that same app included a map of the distance walked. So it included the map, distance in miles, total duration of walk, all of that information. Participants' walking data was verified through other group members and the times that we met. This allowed for feedback on a weekly basis, as well as immediate opportunities for feedback through sending that information via technology at the time of the walking incidents. As a result of the experience of IOA agreement was at 100%. This is in large part due to that technology that was utilized in all instances where the technology and app app worked without incident, which was most of the time. In a few instances where the technology failed, reliance was on the time date stamps provided at the beginning and the end of exercise sessions, as well as reliance on those exact distances used during previous exercise sessions. And that resulted in the same 100% IOA agreement. The original study had extremely high IOA agreement as well at 97%. And without the variable of a minimal pace being set, as was done in the original study, our replication was straightforward and easy to obtain that 100%. Here you see the group results in graph form. The visuals provided show the data that was collected over the 5-week course of time. On the left, you see my chart and graph the effect of the goal setting and feedback on distance walked for me with 2 weeks of baseline data collected, 1 week of intervention 1 with a short-term goal set of walking 1 mile per day 3 times that week, where I only met the 1 mile 1 time, and then a move to phase 3, which was intervention 2, with an overall goal of walking 5 miles in a given week's time. And I met that in week 4 and saw that through to the end of the replication of the study through week 5, at which point, had we continued, I would have been able to increase my goal. On the left, you see the graphs of Chelsea, Janet, and Erica, who all stuck with intervention 1 when given the option. Chelsea and Janet have 1 week of baseline data graphed there, and Erica has 2 weeks in order to show trend and stability before moving on to intervention 1 with their short-term goals. And you can see that overall, the effect of goal setting and feedback on our distances walked was positive and beneficial, and we all improved in the amount of distance that we walked in that time. Now Erica will talk about her results specifically.
My long-term goal of walking a total of 10 miles in a week. As you can see at baseline, I walked an average of 0.2 miles and a total of 7.8 miles. And as you see each week, I kind of, increased that a little bit. And in week 3 overall, I walked an average of 1.4 miles and a total of 10 miles overall. My baseline was a little longer than some of the other girls, and it lasted for about 14 days. So I only had 3 weeks of intervention. So we're going to show Janet's graph.
Thank you, Erica. In baseline, I was only able to achieve 2 miles per week for the whole week. So I started at 0 and to 1 as my range, with an average of 0.2 tenths of a mile on a daily basis. I steadily increased, and I ended up on week 4 at a total of 5.67 miles per week, or an average of 0.8 miles per day. So if you look at my graph, you can see that I had a choice to make at week 2. I chose that option of moving from intervention 1, staying in intervention 1 versus moving to intervention 2. And I was glad I did, because overall I met my long-term goal of 5 miles per week, and also met my goal of walking at least 3 times a week. So next I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea so that she can discuss her results.
Okay, so as you can see on my graph, each week my total miles walked increased, and eventually by week 4, I hit 9.63 miles, which my long-term goal was actually to get 9 miles, so I exceeded it a little bit. And my average increased as well throughout the weeks. My short-term goals were reached too, as my short-term goal was to walk 3 times per week, and I reached that every week. So all of the goals were reached, and you can see it on the graph as it kind of steady goes up. Next, we are going to have Susan's results on her graph.
I am the one who did not reach their goal in intervention 1 of exceeding a mile each incident walked. So I moved to incident 2. So there are 3 phases to mine. The baseline phase was 2 weeks long. There was an average walked of 0.19 miles over the course of those 14 days, having only walked 2 days. The range then was 0 to 1.52 miles. And the total walked was 2.62 miles within that phase. During intervention 1, which was 7 days long, the average daily walk was 0.4, so just under half a mile, with the range being 0 to 1.51 miles. During intervention 1, the total was 2.8 miles walked. At that point, I made the decision to move to intervention 2, no longer requiring a daily goal, and the overall goal was to walk 5 miles in a given week. My average during the first week of intervention 2, which was week 2 of treatment, was 0.72 miles. My range 0 to 2.04 miles, and a total of 5.04 miles. The second week of that intervention, my average was 0.73 miles each day, with a range of 0 to 2.01 miles in a given day, total of 5.09 miles. So goals were reached in intervention 2. In conclusion, weekly goals were met 100% by Chelsea and Erica and Janet throughout the course of the 5-week study within intervention 1. Weekly goals were met at 0% in intervention 1 by myself. However, I met my goals of 100% during intervention 2. In the replication of the social validity questionnaire, it showed that all participants enjoyed participating in this study with a mean of 5. We were all happy with the results we achieved with a mean of 5. And this is on a 1 through 5 scale, Likert scale. We all thought the goal setting procedure was motivating with a mean of 5, and plan to continue with our exercise sessions at the study's conclusion, many of us continuing to use the app itself with a mean of 5. Overall, this study demonstrated the effectiveness of goal setting and the feedback to improve running performance. The use of the app lessened the possibility of data falsification that can result from self-recording. Erica is going to speak to the limitations of this study through the replication.
Of the study, the length of the study was a bit of a limitation, specifically because we were not able to, be a part of the study as long as we wanted to due to some of the time constraints we had for the class. Our sample size was a little small. We were only a group of 4 people, and we did end up losing a group member late in our project. So a lot of our data had to be omitted, and it decreased our sample size even more. There was also a difference in our ages, so maybe future studies can focus on specific age groups to see if there's differences as far as that goes. But overall, we were still able to meet our goals. There were also instances where our app may have failed or frozen, so we had to exclude that data, and we didn't count it towards our data for the project. Also, this was a project that was done in the winter flu season, so some participants got sick, and that was definitely, had an effect on our ability to walk throughout the week. And many of us were on the East Coast, and we dealt with some weather constraints as far as snow. So inclement weather really also affected our use, our ability to walk outside. And when we did have that problem, not everyone had access to a treadmill or gym, so we were not able to walk on those days. Again, this was our reference from the original study, so thank you for listening to us, and we're excited to hear your questions on the discussion board.